Have you ever wondered about the theological doctrine that was named after the French reformer John Calvin? Yes, we're talking about Calvinism. This theological system, born in the heart of the Protestant Reformation, carries the legacy of its namesake, John Calvin. Calvinism, with roots in the 16th century, is more than just a historical curiosity. It's a vibrant, thriving perspective that continues to shape Christian thought and practice around the globe. It's a framework that seeks to understand and interpret the divine will and the human condition, offering a unique perspective on salvation and grace. But what is Calvinism, really? It is a complex doctrine, often summarized by 5 main points, each representing a deep dive into theological discourse. As we embark on this journey to understand Calvinism, remember, it's about more than just a set of beliefs. It's about a worldview, a way to interpret life and faith. In the next few minutes, we shall delve deeper and discuss the 5 points of Calvinism. First, we explore total depravity, also known as total inability. This tenet is the bedrock of Calvinist thought, and it paints a rather bleak picture of humanity. Total depravity posits that humans are fundamentally sinful, right down to their very core. It's not just about committing acts of sin, it's the idea that our very nature, our essence, is steeped in sin. From birth, according to this doctrine, we are morally corrupt, incapable of choosing or doing good without divine intervention. It's like we're passengers on a runaway train, barreling headlong into sin without any brakes to slow us down. Humanity is not just sinful, but utterly and completely depraved, incapable of any good or seeking God in any way. This is not to say that humans are as wicked as they could be, but rather that sin has affected every part of our being, our minds, our wills, our emotions, and our bodies. So in essence, total depravity suggests that every facet of humanity is corrupted by sin. Total depravity extends to a complete inability to respond positively to the gospel or exercise faith in Christ. Next on the list is unconditional election. This refers to the belief in Calvinism that God, in his infinite wisdom, has predestined certain individuals for salvation. This doesn't mean that these individuals have earned their salvation through virtuous actions or inherent goodness. Quite the contrary. It suggests that God's choice is purely based on his divine mercy, independent of any human quality or action. God's election is not based on his foreknowledge of who will believe, but is solely determined by his sovereign will. Only a specific, predetermined group of individuals are predestined for salvation, and the rest are left in their sinful state. Moving on, we come to limited atonement. Christ's atonement is not universal in its scope, but is limited to the elect, securing their salvation completely. Christ's sacrifice is not intended for the salvation of all humanity, but only for the chosen few. It asserts that the death of Christ was designed with a specific intention, accomplishing a clear, predestined outcome. The atonement wasn't a mere possibility, it was a certainty, an act of divine design. In other words, limited atonement emphasizes the intention of God's design in the death of Christ. Fourth in line is irresistible grace. This denotes the belief that God's call to salvation is not a mere invitation, but a divine summons that is powerfully effective. When God chooses to save someone, his grace is irresistible, and the individual has no ability to resist or reject it. Nothing can thwart it, not even our own will. It's not about God forcing us against our will, but rather changing our hearts so we come willingly. Irresistible grace, therefore, proposes that those called by God into salvation will inevitably come to faith. God's grace operates effectively and irresistibly in the hearts of the elect, ensuring their conversion and perseverance in faith. Last but not least, we have the perseverance of the saints. This tenet holds a comforting notion for those of faith. Those whom God has elected and regenerated will inevitably persevere in faith and cannot lose their salvation. It's not about perfection, but about endurance, a steadfastness in belief that is seen as a divine gift, not a human achievement. God preserves his chosen ones throughout their lives, guaranteeing their eternal security. Essentially, perseverance of the saints assures believers of their eternal security in Christ. To sum it up, we've delved into the heart of Calvinism, exploring its 5 key tenets. We started with total depravity, the belief that mankind is inherently sinful and cannot come to God without divine intervention. Then, we moved on to unconditional election, which professes that God has chosen from eternity those whom he will bring to himself, not based on foreseen virtue, merit, or faith in individuals. Next, we discussed limited atonement, the idea that Christ's sacrifice was explicitly for the elect. This was followed by irresistible grace, the convicting assertion that God's grace is so powerful that it can overcome human resistance. Finally, we concluded with the perseverance of the saints, underscoring the belief that those whom God has called into communion with himself will continue in faith until the end. And that, dear viewers, is a brief overview of the 5 points of Calvinism. Thanks for tuning in.